Hey minions, welcome to Crank It Up. I'm Jim Price, and on this episode of the Gauntlet, I want to talk about Granny Greeks. The Grannies made it to the finals on the strength of the aliens last year, and it's fair to ask whether or not this is an upgrade for them. Alien Grannies live and die with the invaders, and do not break bases, which means if you don't see the invaders, they struggle badly. I gave them Greeks to make both factions more consistent. The Grannies are a support faction that provide a great deal of deck manipulation. The Greeks are extremely powerful, but it's weird to call them top-heavy. Their bottom minions are great, but their top minions are fantastic. Getting to them is essential because they enable some crazy plays and provide new context to many of the Greek cards. But the Mythic Greeks have very little card draw, and in fact can have reverse card draw because of Favor of Dionysius. So the Grannies' ability to move their cards around really helps. One thing I learned from last year is that the Grannies are deceptively very good at drawing cards. Family Reunion can be used to draw cards based on how many minions you can play each turn. Argonauts are extra minions that can be played with your actions, which can mean multiple cards per turn. Matriarch can draw 2 cards per turn if they are minions. There is risk involved, as you would lose actions, but I'll get to that in a second. You have the Grannies and Grandmas for mitigating that risk, as well as attic treasures, where you can position your cards accordingly to get to your high tier minions faster. This will also allow you to draw more cards in the meantime. Matriarch is risky. You can lose cards, but this team has a built-in backup plan. Granny Greeks have theoretically infinite recursion. Both teams have cards that can recycle cards, some faster than others. Chicken Soup can put any 2 cards on the top or bottom of your deck. Favor of Poseidon can shuffle in up to 3 cards. That means that each card can save the other and bring in additional cards as well. When you factor in Always Room at Grannies, you can use that to recur your minions while using the other cards to recur your actions. You even have Favor of Hades for further action recursion. The easy play of Argonauts makes it hard to not have a presence on any base, which means that you could focus Odysseus and Heracles on your insane plays, which are pretty epic. Odysseus has the benefit of adding power counters that persist from turn to turn. Heracles can add temporary power when you are making a big play to break a base. Either of them individually can be great, but together they can be insane if you have the right cards. It is extremely difficult trying to calculate exactly how much power they could add in a given situation. I always need to break out a notepad. But here is a snippet of it. Let's assume that both of these minions are out, which is easily done when you get to both and you play Always Room at Grannies. Each action played, by virtue of playing it, is +2 power, and Odysseus can send that power anywhere, which makes this a potential 2-base attack. Favor of Dionysius can add 1 power and put it on top of your deck. Granny's Purse can draw Favor of Dionysius and give you an extra action. Favor of Dionysius can be played again for another power. Granny's Purse can be played again so that Favor of Dionysius can be played again. Nana can play Favor of Dionysius from the top of the deck for another power. Favor of Apollo can draw Favor of Dionysius, and Favor of Dionysius can be played again. In this example, which did not involve many cards in hand, Favor of Dionysius was played 5 times for 5 power. I played a total of 8 actions for 16 power, and there are plenty of ways to increase this number further. You can mix in a Favor of Hermes, and use Chicken Soup to place it on top of the deck to be drawn with Granny's Purse or Favor of Apollo. You could play Favor of Hermes, then play Favor of Hades to grab Favor of Hermes and play it again. There are a lot of ways to make big plays, and they are time-consuming to calculate, but the options exist in large numbers. This team still has a fairly decent burst by playing only a few cards. Jason and Favor of Zeus is a minimum of 10 breakpoint damage, potentially more based on how many minions you have on a base. Given that this team is prone to playing many cards in a turn, it's nice to have a 2-card combo that can do a moderate amount of breakpoint damage. This team should have an action to play every turn, which allows the Spartans to grow every turn. While this is power creep, it is necessary for the faction because it allows them to be more conservative with their bursts on a future turn. It also means that you have fairly instant access to 4-powered minions, which are harder to destroy, and soon enough they will be 5 power, which is even harder. The Mythic Greeks have always had a solid game plan for breaking bases, and the Grannies just help execute that plan early and often. One thing that strikes me about this team is that they are consistent but never flashy. They have a very high floor but a low ceiling. They can do a big play, but not often, but can repeatedly play their best minions even for just their printed power. Throw in a few extra minion plays and consistent use of their Argonauts, and they will surprise people. They have a good defensive card in Don't Mess With My Babies to keep your engine minions safe. The first weakness I have for them is that they are very mathy, and it's easy to make a mistake, potentially forfeiting a lot of temporary power and wasting a lot of cards. You need to be sure you have the right amount, because there are several little plays that add up over time. I think the Mythic Greeks are hurt by the uncertainty of the Witness rule, especially in this combo. They already suffer from having to deal with after the first time clauses, but my general belief is that if you could point to a clarification that supports the timing of one of their plays, I will honor that, because to me, the Greeks would have tremendous self-anti-synergy otherwise. This team has no movement or disruption, and they take a turn to set up their burst. This means that they cannot kick you off a base or move to another base to score it solo. They can win bases, but they cannot get uncontested points unless you let them. Once one of their minions is on a base, jump on yourself, and you will have at least second place, and if they do want an expensive play for first, let them. They rely on playing a lot of cards for their biggest burst, so Secret Agent and Eliza will be potent. For the Secret Agent, it's unfortunate for them that Argonaut, even play as a minion, will force you to discard a card. This team often needs to lead with one of their engine minions, and you have to be careful with Heracles. His ability for power growth is triggered by any player, and it's automatic, which can mean it can be exploited by the right team. Allowing him to gain power while you are still winning just means you can get a more efficient victory as the opponent, which means it may be better to actually lead with Odysseus. But, because of their recursion, they can survive an Omega Protocol to rush the base and get him off the field. I also like how Heracles can mitigate the damage of special actions. Finally, this team generates a lot of power counters, which as I mentioned before can be power creep. But they could also be stolen by the Kung Fu fighters, who would love for Odysseus to pile counters onto a single minion, only for Dragon Warrior to steal them. There's great value in being a team that is consistent and gets to their best cards quickly. This team can do a lot of little things, like using Attic Treasures to pin 2 Argonauts on the bottom of your deck for Matriarch to draw them back, or using Favor of Athena to stack your deck so that a Granny can put a minion on the bottom of your deck, or Nana can play an action off the top. Knitting Circle can be one of the best action destruction cards, and against some teams, it would be brutal. They are mathy, but given the real-life relevance of Greek mathematicians, it seems fitting. What do you think of Greek Grannies? Let me know in the comments. That's it for this team. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let's shut it down.